Hey guys, it's Silver Seeker, and in today's video, I want to talk to you about why I'm much more bullish on silver than I am on gold. I will do a precursor by saying that I'm actually very bullish on both metals, but I'm much more bullish on silver, and I'm going to tell you why in this video, so let's get into it. Okay, so like I said, I want to talk to you guys about why I think I'm much more bullish on silver than gold right now. And again, it's not that gold is a bad investment. In fact, I think gold and silver are both very incredible investments. But when I look at the markets and I look at what's been happening with silver and gold, and then I look at the physical demand of silver and the high premiums that you see on things like silver eagles and silver rounds, it really does speak to me in ways that make me think that maybe silver is incredibly undervalued even on, the stock market when you're looking at spot prices. In fact, today it's sitting at around $15.70, or I think it even creeped up to $16 at some point today. And I think it's going to continue to very, very slowly creep up. Silver's definitely returning back to where it was before this all started. And gold is moving up as well. But on a percentage basis, silver is actually climbing a little bit more. And if you look at the comparison of the gold to silver ratio, and if you guys don't know what the gold to silver ratio is, we'll talk about it a little bit. Essentially, it is how much silver it takes to purchase 1 ounce of gold. So for example, if silver is valued at $15 an ounce and gold is valued at $1,500, then it would take 100 ounces of silver to be able to purchase 1 ounce of gold, or in other words, an exchange rate of 100 to 1. Of course, this isn't including premiums and things like that. The dealer that you're making the trade with having to make a little bit on it. This is just flat numbers. If you were to walk up to someone and say, hey, I have silver, you have gold, you want to swap, and if you looked at spot, the ratio would be 100 to 1, and that's what you would do. That's what I'm talking about here. We're not talking about premiums and things like that. So when I'm looking at silver and I see silver at today's market sitting at 110 to 1, and then I look back just a couple of weeks ago when this all started and silver really spiked to about 125 to 1, you're really seeing silver start to get a little bit back to where it's supposed to be. Now, on average, over the last 20 years, silver has been around 65 to 75 to 1. It's been in the 80s a lot. In fact, I think about a year ago, I made a video when it actually hit 90 to 1. And I'm like, man, it's pretty crazy. And now it's sitting at 110, and it was as high as 125 just a few weeks ago. And I just look at those numbers, and it just blows my mind. Because if you look at the amount of silver that's actually in the earth versus the amount of gold that's in the earth, and we're talking overall, everything that's been mined or hasn't been mined, we're comparing all those numbers. It's really only about 17.5 to 1 to gold. And as far as I know, now you can correct me if I'm wrong, and if you want to, share an article or something and let me know that I'm incorrect, feel free to go ahead. But as far as I know, silver's actually much more used industrially than gold is anymore. In fact, if you want to look back in the 80s when gold was being very used heavily in computer circuit boards and, connectors, things like that, the process has gotten to a point that it's so thin that those refining processes, people, basically repurposing or scrapping old electronic parts to get the gold out of them, has become much less of a lucrative industry, mainly because of how little gold they actually use. It's just a thin, very thin, almost you can scratch it with the head of a pin plating than what they used to have, where you could actually get a decent amount of gold out of everything, even including old CPUs. But again, we're looking at silver today. Again, it's going to take 110 of these to equal 1 ounce of gold. And we just talked about the gold and silver ratio, and I'm actually going to show you on a website exactly what I'm talking about. But just to give you like a visual idea, if we get rid of this 1 ounce eagle at today's market, this brick right here, this is 10 ounce bars. It's 100 ounces of silver. That's still not enough to equal this 1 ounce of gold. You'd actually have to add like a whole nother 10 ounce bar to it. So it would literally take 11 of these, or 110 ounces, to equal the same price of this 1 ounce of gold. And looking at the amount of gold and silver that's actually out there, that number just doesn't match. In fact, if you look back to 1798, I believe is when the United States set that the gold to silver ratio should be 15 to 1. And we held on to that for a very, very, very long time. And you can see other videos where we've talked about, the gold and silver standard and things like that. But what I want to do now, guys, now that we've just kind of had an overview of it, and if you just see a physical comparison, it's really crazy, like just a sheer amount difference. Now that we've looked at a physical comparison, I want to show you what I think is going to happen. I'm going to show you basically a historical chart really quick. So let's get over there. We're going to look at gold to silver ratios as they stand today, as they were a few weeks ago and even a few months ago. So let's go ahead and take a look, and Let's check that out. Okay, guys, so we are at goldprice.com, and this is actually their gold to silver ratio charts that we're taking a look at today. And if you don't know, if you've never looked at these before, it's basically just a historical comparison of gold to silver ratios over a set period of time. And this first chart here, this one right here is a really quick glance at 3 days, and you can actually adjust the data right here. This isn't the one we're going to be looking at. That being said, if you haven't joined our Discord server yet, make sure that you do, because if you type !ratio on our Discord server, it will actually bring this chart up for you up to date right then and there. So you can actually just pull it up by hitting !ratio in the Discord server. But we're actually going to scroll down and look at this chart right here. This one's an actual chart that you can zoom in, move around dates. And remember, I had said that last year I had made a video when gold and silver had hit 90 to 1. And I was talking about how I was much more bullish on silver then as well. And I believe that was around July. In fact, if you look at July right here, it hit about 93.9 on July 4th of last year, and it came back down. So here we go back down into the 80s, and we're bouncing around. You know, it's even been in the 80s. This was January of last year, and if you scroll back, you're back down into the 70s. 2017, even in July, it was in the 60s of 2016. So you can see it's slowly been creeping up. And when it creeps up, that means you need even more silver to get the same amount of gold. And what we're actually looking at here, so right here, this is around where the gold to silver ratio really, really spiked. And the reason that this spike happened is because, as you guys know, both gold and silver really kind of fell through a floor. But silver fell through a floor, and then another floor, and then a basement, and then it left a little hole in the ground, and then a grenade exploded, and it fell into that hole as well. And then there was some acid, and it ate an even bigger hole, and it fell into that. Silver just plummeted back below $12 an ounce. Now, gold also took a drop, but on a percentage basis, gold did not drop near as far as silver did. It really didn't. And a lot of people were saying, see, this is why I said don't invest in silver. This is why I said don't invest in silver. See, gold's a much more stable metal. And I'm not going to argue that with you. I do think that gold's a much more stable metal. It's proven to be a more stable metal. But I think the upside for silver right now is huge. And the reason I say that is because if you look at when it peaked right here, let's see, this was March 18th. And if you look at this small window here, so February 20th, we're at 87.37. You start to see it creep up. It's in the 90s. It's getting in almost to 100. It hits 100, and then boom, like everything starts shutting down. Governments start releasing stay-at-home orders. Here we go, 117, 118, 21, 24. And as you can see, if you would have bought silver right here at its peak, about 124.5, you'd already be able to exchange that silver back towards gold. It's right now sitting at 112. So you would have been able to if you would have bought 125 ounces of silver, again, not including premiums, you could take your 125 ounces of silver, you could trade 112 of it for an ounce of gold, and you could keep the other 13 ounces of silver. So you basically profited 13 ounces of silver right there. And the reason that I'm so bullish on silver is because I feel like this number is going to easily come back down into the 80s again. I think in fact, it could even really get back down into the 70s. Again, this is all personal opinion, but I think silver is really setting itself up to be a very strong run. And what's really crazy about that is I'm very bullish on gold too. So if you were to look at these two numbers and you were to say, okay, well, if silver is going to get back to 80 to 1 with gold, how is that going to happen? Well, there's only two ways it can happen. One, gold has to come down to meet the 1 to 80 ratio, or two, silver has to climb to meet that 1 to 80 ratio, right? So I think what you're looking at is silver's really set up into a position to where it's going to climb. It's going to climb at a faster rate than gold, and you're going to see yourselves getting back to that 80 to 1 ratio. And I think it's at that point that you're really going to see things start to stabilize. But I think as far as like right now is concerned, if I were to be out buying gold and silver, in fact, I am a buyer of gold and silver, but if I were to be putting my money into it right now, it would definitely be silver in a much greater ratio, and it is. I've actually invested in a lot of silver. Now, here's the thing. You guys are going to say, well, yeah, the premiums are really, really high on silver. It's very hard to get at spot. I mean, that is correct. Don't get me wrong. Gold has actually got a pretty high premium on it as well. But percentage-wise, silver has a very, very high premium on it. So when you're looking at this data, just make sure that you keep that in mind when you're making your buying decisions. Now, of course, these numbers are really set by futures trading. So we actually discussed this in a video a couple of weeks ago. These numbers are quite literally set by futures trading. So the physical stuff in your hand, of course, is not going to be the same exact price as what you see in the spot market. And in fact, I think now the premiums are actually starting to come back down a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be back down as low as they were before all this started for a good time. I mean, I'm talking 6 months, maybe longer, before you really see the availability of like 1 ounce rounds. If you look at like these spot deals, you should be able to get these like silver at spot deals. You would have SD Bullion and JM Bullion and all them doing these silver at spot deals where you would quite literally be able to get 5 ounces or 10 ounces of silver at spot price. And that's their way of just kind of getting you into the market. Hopefully you buy some more stuff from them. But those were loss leaders for those companies. A loss leader being basically a deal to where the company loses money, but it gets customers into the door. It's kind of like paying for advertising. It's a different way to pay for advertising if you think about it. But again, this is all just my opinion. I just personally think that you're going to see gold and silver hit back down to that 80, maybe into 85s, but I think it's really going to get back down to that 80-to-1 ratio, and I think it's going to do it here pretty quickly. I mean, in a couple of weeks to a couple of months, you're really going to see it, and you can already see it start to be trending back together. So I think that you're really going to see those numbers come closer and closer as time goes on, and you're really going to see it get back down to that 80-to-1 ratio. So anyway, guys, that's basically all I have for you on this one. It's just, again, this is all my opinion. Please, don't just trust what I tell you. Listen to everybody and make informed decisions. Don't just listen to one random guy on YouTube, but go out there and do your own research, read a lot of articles, get other people's opinions, and see what you think. Look at history. I mean, we can scroll all the way out and look at the history of gold and silver, and you've never seen this. Look back in 2014. Here it is at 62.8 or 62.68, and it's, it bounces up and down. Here we go again, 64, bounces up. It's been climbing, it's been coming back down. But this is insane. So I think you're going to see it get back down into this range, and I think you're going to see it happen pretty quickly. Again, a few weeks, maybe a few months, but either way, you're going to see it pretty quickly get back down into that range. And I don't think it's going to get back down into that range because gold is going to go down. I think it's going to get back down into that range because silver and gold are both going to climb. But I personally think silver is going to climb at a much greater ratio percentage-wise than gold is. So anyway, guys, like I said, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know what you think down below. Leave a comment. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure you like and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you on the channel in the future. And we will see you next time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much for watching, and I do hope that you enjoyed the video. Now, really quick before you go, over here I do want to give a huge shout out to all of my channel members. Thank you so much for your support of the channel. It means the world to me. Guys, we also have some videos up here you can check out. If you haven't done so yet, click on those. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please don't forget to subscribe before you go.